Hey there, 7th graders. This is Mr. Washington, and it's time for another video lesson. This one is on essays. Essays are the bane of the existence of students and teachers everywhere. Students because you have to write them, teachers because we have to grade them. Sooner or later, someone's going to ask you to write an essay if they haven't already done so. The fact of the matter is that essays aren't easy. They require you to navigate back and forth between an assortment of important academic skills such as reading, writing, research, planning, organization, grammar, and a variety of other skills that might not even make you a better writer. Look, I know essays can be a little daunting, but there's no need to cry about it. The truth is that essays are a lot like jigsaw puzzles. They can be a little intimidating at first, but if you know where all the pieces fit, it makes it a whole lot easier to put everything together. And that's what's the whole purpose of this video, to help you understand what are the different parts of an essay and determine how they fit together. If you can do that, you're well on your way to becoming a good essay writer. So strap on your seatbelt and make yourself comfortable as we prepare to review the different parts of an essay. Before we get down to business, let's make sure we have all the tools we need for effective note-taking. First, you'll obviously need something to write with. Pencil, pen, whatever you prefer, just as long as you can read it when you go back to it later, and you will need to go back to it later. You'll also need a highlighter. One of the things we'll eventually be doing is looking at an example essay and highlighting what we see, so a highlighter is a must-have for this part of the exercise. The next thing you'll need is something to write on. In class, we'll be using a set of colored Cornell closed notes like this one, but you can use whatever you like or have available. Just make sure you watch the entire video and write down everything you see. You will eventually be required to incorporate all of this into your own writing. Don't forget to put your name, class and period, and date at the top right-hand corner of the page, as well as putting the topic of the activity here, which is, of course, parts of an essay. If you haven't written that yet, be sure to write it down now. You'll also need a handout that looks like this. It's a sample essay entitled, Why Superman is Super Cool. We'll be using this as our model text for after we're finished note-taking to help us see exactly what a well-organized essay looks like. Make sure to head this paper as well with name, date, and period before you proceed. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's put some words on that page. Oh, one last sort of business. Let's quickly review the standards and objectives we'll be addressing in this video. Now let's be clear, you do not have to write this down. Every time we take notes, someone asks me, where do I write the standard and objectives? You don't. You just need to be familiar with what they are. The standard and objectives are as follows. We want to be able to create multi-paragraph compositions focusing on central ideas and details, include an appropriate introduction and satisfying conclusion, and write an effective thesis statement. Now let's talk about the essential guiding question, and this is something you will want to write at the top of your page. Our essential question for this lesson is as follows. How do you write an effective essay, and what are its different parts? If you use each of these parts effectively, you're far more likely to write an effective essay. You'll want to write that at the top of the page where it asks for our essential guiding question. By the time we're done with this exercise, we'll know exactly how to answer this specific question as well as having a better handle on how a good essay is written. Let's start with the basics. What the heck is an essay and how is it different from other types of writing? We define an essay as a short piece of writing that deals with a single specific topic. Essays are generally non-fiction, meaning that they deal with real people, places, and events. There are 3 types of essays we'll be reviewing today, even though we'll really only be using 2 of them in class. The first type of essay is a narrative essay. A narrative essay is an essay about real people, places, and events, but written as if it were a story. A narrative essay is going to likely have some, if not all, of the elements of fiction, like plot, dialogue, theme, characters, and so forth. But all of those elements will deal with real situations rather than those that are made up. The The second type of essay is an expository essay. Expository writing is writing that's designed to inform, explain, and/or analyze a topic. This is ultimately the most common type of essay because it's just giving you information that you may want to use later. The last type of essay is called a persuasive essay. Persuasive writing is writing designed to influence the reader to understand, agree with, or do what the author asserts. Now, when you get right down to it, one of these essay types is a little easier than the others. Can you guess which one it is? If you guessed a narrative essay, you are correct. Narrative essays are just telling stories, and telling stories is sort of second nature to us as human beings. So narrative writing isn't as challenging as, say, expository or persuasive. If we're engaging in academic writing, the type of writing we do in schools or professional settings, we're most likely to need to write either an expository or a persuasive writing. So for the foreseeable future, these are the types of essay prompts we will be discussing. Now that we know what an essay is, let's talk about its different parts. Though slightly different in their approach, all essays, including narrative, expository, and persuasive, consist of the same parts: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Let's take some time to look at each of these different parts. Let's begin at the beginning. The first paragraph of your essay is called the introduction. An introduction presents the subject of the essay, captures or hooks the reader's attention, and identifies the specific focus of the writing. In other words, an introduction introduces the reader to what the writer will be talking about. That makes sense, right? An introduction of an essay must contain what is called a thesis statement. Now, thesis statements are super important. A thesis statement is a sentence or a group of sentences that expresses the author's central idea and how he or she will develop it in an essay. It basically tells the reader what the essay is going to be about. Thesis statements are generally found at or near the end of the introduction. The vast majority of the time, it's going to be the very last sentence of the first paragraph. Now, thesis statements should not be confused with topic sentences, though they are kind of similar. The thesis statement does for an entire essay what a topic sentence does for a paragraph, namely inform the reader of what the writer is going to be talking about from this point forward. Once you've introduced your topic, it's time to actually talk about it, and that's what the body of your essay is for. The middle paragraphs of your essay are called the body of your essay. Each of these paragraphs represents one point you are making to support your thesis statement. Usually, some of the language that's used in the introduction will find its way into the body of the essay. Now, here's where it pays to know the characteristics of a paragraph. Each body paragraph should start with a good topic sentence and should have roughly 5 sentences. The remaining sentences should consist of supporting details. These are facts, reasons, and/or specific examples that go along with the topic sentence. It's also a good idea to link each paragraph together using what are called transitional devices. These are words, phrases, or even whole sentences that show the relationship between each body paragraph. Some examples of good transitional devices include words and phrases like first of all, secondly, next, also, finally, additionally, in conclusion. The list goes on and on. How about we save our discussion of transitional devices for another day? Let's move on to the third and final part of the essay, which is the conclusion. Oh, by the way, that phrase I just used, let's move on to the third and final part of the essay, which is the conclusion, is itself a transitional device. It's a sentence that lets you know that I'm done talking about one thing and moving on to another. So I guess it's worth it to spend a little time talking about transitional devices after all. Okay, back to conclusions. The conclusion is the last paragraph of your essay. The conclusion includes the final impressions and thoughts in which the author summarizes his or her overall points in relation to the thesis statement. A good conclusion should give the reader a sense of completion and a clear indication that the writer has made his or her point. It's kind of like saying goodbye at the end of a conversation. It just feels right to wrap things up before you move on. The conclusion may also push the reader to new thinking or ideas, or ask them to do something in response to the writer's argument. Maybe you'll want to leave the reader with something to think about, or tell them how to feel after you've just made this brilliant argument. Either way, don't just stop dead in your tracks. End your essay with a strong and interesting conclusion. So those are the parts of an essay, and since we've reached the conclusion of our notes, it's time to write a quick summary at the bottom of the page. Summarize the notes you just took by answering the following 2 questions in the summary section of your Cornell Notes. Question number 1, what are the 3 parts of an essay, and in what order should they be written? Question number 2, what is a thesis statement and why is it important? Take a moment to look back at your notes and come up with an answer to these 2 questions. Once you've done that, you're done taking notes. How about we take a break, huh? That concludes our note-taking exercise for the day, but we're not exactly done. We still need to look at that sample essay you got, but how about we save that for another video? Be sure to put these notes in your binder and refer to them often. Remember, you will eventually be expected to write an essay that incorporates all the information that we've just discussed. This has been Mr. Washington saying, you'll never know where you're going until you get there. Thanks for viewing my video. Bye!